This is Pastor Joseph Spurgeon, the host of the Patriarchy Podcast. It's a podcast aimed at Christian men that encourages them to embrace their roles of leadership, responsibility, and strength in their families, at church, and their communities. At its peak, the show was hitting 10,000 downloads per month, but now it dropped to just 1,000. And that is a big problem because Pastor Joseph has a vision to grow the show, bring more exposure to his church, and turn this podcast into a monetizable platform that supports his mission. But none of that can happen without reaching more people. And I'm Guillaume, the co-founder of GHA Marketing. My agency has helped launch, grow, market, and monetize close to 100 podcasts by now, and we are managing 40 podcasts at any given time. We have some clients that get close to 100,000 downloads per month. Others make very, very good money each and every month out of their podcast. Others are growing their business or building their brand. But the point being here, what we want to achieve is grow back to 10,000 downloads per month for Stephen. And some of my clients generate close to 100,000 downloads per month. And in this video, we're going to go through together with Joseph content, guest, discoverability of his podcast, how to create an email list, how to market his podcast, and how to really monetize it. Let's get on with the show. You were getting 5,000 downloads at some point because you told me, so I'm on the nose right now. So you've been running it for 5-6 years. You were at 10,000 a month. And you went down to 5,000, but I guess it went even further down, and now you're at 1,000 per month. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, that's correct. All right. But I think we can get back up. You know, every once in a while, an episode does pop up like that. I think their subscribers are out there already on the listening side. The video side is where I got to do a lot of work. I have a goal. I want to be able to make $500 a month by the end of the year. And nice. I have a plan, I think.
Where do you think you need the most help right now? Let's maybe start with this, and then we can build up based on.
Yeah. What if I tell you my plan, and then you can be like, "No, that's the dumbest thing ever," or "That's a good thing." Okay. So plan. So is to have a podcast episode in a pipeline of things. So there's the creative, which includes coming up with the idea, who I may interview. They'll be reaching out to potential interviews and scheduling those. They'll be coming up with the cold opens, the closing, any kind of script that I need, maybe helping with questions that I do in the interviews. The podcast will be in an initial episode that the first week of the life of the podcast, if you will be within creative. And I have submitted my church who that's going to be their position. So they could work a couple hours a week as volunteers to really work on that. And I've put together a list of my top 100 guests, my dream guests, all the way up to the silliest one of them all, trying to get our vice president. So it's like I have a dream list of guests. I've got a creative. Then there'll be the recording side, which is me recording, interviewing, that process. And then there's the editing, which the guy at my church will edit it. He'll be producing thumbnails. He'll be producing shorts from the thing. And the software that we use to record helps with the shorts and stuff. And then the last stage is the promotional stage, and that's making sure they have the right kind of descriptions, the right keywords, putting them out on social media, putting them out on all the different platforms, and I've created I use ChatGPT, so I created a specific chat just for the podcast, which can then take the transcript from the podcast and produce social media posts, can produce a blog post, can produce, stuff like that. So they will make use of that, and their job will be the promotional side. So the episode comes out, and then their work basically is the work of everything after it's recorded, what happens there, and getting that out, promoting it, making sure that we are finding good release schedules, and those kinds of things. I have logo, I have artwork that I've done. So I'm working now to make sure I got to work with the creative guy, the editing guy, to make sure our thumbnails are catchy. And yet I want something, and maybe this may be where I'm wrong. You might tell me I'm wrong, but that are recognizable for the brand. So right now my thumbnails, I feel like, are all over the creation. Like they change from episode to episode. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. I want more uniformity while also like not to be clickbaity, but like something that's catchy in the thumbnail. So I've been looking at a lot of podcasts, especially in my niche, if you will, to see what they do. A big one is a guy named Jocko Willink, and just to see what he's done and other things like that. So that's my plan, is to get that ball rolling with that, and then to start introducing, I think you told me about like collecting emails, basically finding some kind of way, a free book, a free something that will drive people. We just created a new website for the podcast too. So we have that up. So if you go to the patriarchypodcast.com, you can see our website that we just put up. That will have more stuff on it eventually. But for now, it's I've written copy for the podcast, for the website. So anyways,
It's a sweet plan.
Okay.
Build, fight the patriarchy, protect, lead. Man, that's so, pardon my cursing and my French, but that's so badass. I love it. Okay, so content, guests, discoverability, thumbnails, collecting emails, all these to reach $500 a month of sponsorship deals. I understand, or monetization in some form.
Yeah, either affiliate links. So, I've written a couple children's books that are actually geared toward teaching boys that masculinity is good and girls that femininity is good. So I've already started advertising that in the podcast.
Let's start with the beginning. We are objectives, right? Objective is getting somewhere where you can generate $500 a month worth of revenues, whether that's through sponsorship, affiliates, direct sales, whatever it is. And I guess to help as many boys and men as possible, so grow the podcast as well.
Yeah. So I would like to get back to 10,000 within of listens per episode. I don't know if that's a goal within a year to be able to reach. I don't know, but I think the 500 is doable within a year. The $500, but I think maybe a reasonable goal is like, let's consistently hit that 5,000 listen mark. Let's consistently hit that.
Okay, cool. So look, I'm gonna share my screen. The first thing that you need to do, and I would really do this carefully because that's the most important piece.
Okay.
It is the content that you're going to release. Okay. The content is the most important piece, because if you can have the best podcast in the world, the best thumbnails, the best discoverability and so on. If it's content that nobody wants to consume, nobody will consume it. Yes, you can put some ads budget, which is not the idea here. Like you can force traffic on it, but then as soon as you stop, you're not going to get anything. So I would really niche down on the content and make sure that you are touching on the points that actually get looked for by the public that you're targeting. How do you do that? Multiple tools. The one that we like a lot to begin with is answerthepublic.com. So here, see, I'm
sorry, what was that called again?
It's called answerthepublic.com. I'm gonna link it in your in the Google chat here. Okay. Answerthepublic.com. So because right now I understand that you're creating episodes around what you think is good, and there might be some intersections between what you think is good and what's actually good. So those ones perform well. This is what you said. Some episodes do very well. Well, it's probably because it's the right content, right? Because you have your fan base, you have your followers already existing. But if when you release a specific type of episodes, you get more listeners, it means that this specific topic is looked for. So I would actually do that research on your channels as well, of like, okay, what are, among the last 100 episodes I've released, what are the top 10? Okay, and you look specifically at the topics. Then you can look at tools like answerthepublic.com. So I've pasted it in the Google chat here. You will type 1 or 2 keywords here. You can choose the location. Here I've selected United States, obviously, English. And here you can see, you can actually see like actual questions that people are asking. Okay. And you can see the search volumes for it. So here, it's Neil Patel's tool. He gives you a taste of it. So like it's from 1 to 100, right? So it's going to be a trend and like volumes, search volumes. But so you can see actually here what keywords to go for. So for instance, this one, what masculinity means, has a score of 30. Where does masculinity come from? Who killed masculinity in video games? See, like there are some really interesting topics that you might want to stem from for the hook of your episode, and then develop on this to actually offer the great insights that you offer, but basing yourself on search terms that people are looking for right now. That's the first thing I would do. Like you literally you can release an episode for each of those questions here. That would be worth your while, and you will grow because this is what people are looking for, and obviously go for the most searched for in the first place. But so Answer the Public, fantastic tools, and I would definitely look at this when trying to come up with new ideas of content. Okay. The other thing, masculinity, sorry, I cannot multitask. I'm terrible at this. The other tool that you can use is called Google Trends. So here, same thing, but it's from Google directly. And it shows you, so like the main associations or the main terms that are associated with masculinity and what you can potentially hit on. Obviously, we have this one.
Yeah.
You could make a kind of catchy hook thanks to it, and then explain why toxic masculinity is a lie. For instance, right? I'm just throwing ideas here. But you use that that search term, and then you develop on why you think, hey, masculinity can be positive if done properly, if to aim towards helping people in faith and so on and so forth. So these kind of tools will actually help you refine what type of content you need to hit on, because this is what's the most looked for. You can see a little heat map of the most associated terms with it. So that also gives you a good idea of like, okay, what do people associate this with? How should I approach my episodes and how to advertise them as well? So Google Trends, Google Keywords Planner is another tool. Answer the Public, sorry. I would base myself on this to come up with the right content. I'm going to pause here. Does all that make sense, Joseph? Do you have any questions so far?
Yes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yep. And cool. That's Google Trends you're looking at right now?
Google Trends. I'm going to put the link here. I'm also going to link, so it's trends.google.com. And like, I would do this. I would look at, where are you? Here we go. I would look at Answer the Public. And here I've just typed, masculinity, but you can associate it with other terms as well. You can focus on other terms. Honestly, it only costs a few dollars a month for Answer the Public. I would really, that's a worthwhile investment when you want to grow a podcast. Mm-hmm. And the last one is Google Keywords Planner. Also very, very good. If you
Google Keywords Planner, is what you said?
Yeah. So you need to go on ads.google.com. You won't have to pay anything. So I'm pasting the link here, ads.google.com. And here you can do keyword research. And then you will see, okay, what do people actually look for? What are the queries that people ask in Google based on your keywords? The next level of this, if you really want to deep dive into it, is Reddit communities. Like, I'm sure there are forums where you have young boys and even men asking themselves questions and collaborating around, contributing to that, to answer some of the questions, or like helping out people. But like this, you can see what type of questions do people ask themselves, and go out there on internet to ask a community and do some points that you can tackle as well. And you can participate in that Reddit forum, and you can be like, hey, guys, this is what for me masculinity is. If you look at certain aspect of the Bible, or if you look at, you can bring it with your own voice. Don't advertise your podcast too much. When people start interacting with you and ask you like, okay, but like, can you develop on this whatsoever? Then with the consent of the moderators of that specific Reddit communities, say, hey, we've just been talking about this topic. People ask for more. Is it okay if I link that here? And this can be a huge source of traffic. And last but not least, so this is more for B2B that we use it, but Quora's questions, like when you go in certain specific communities and niches, you can get amazing questions that people ask on a forum again, so you know what they are looking for. So I would use those tools. I would look very seriously at your episodes that perform the most to understand what is it that your audience wants to listen about, and double down on this, and like have some derivative episodes on this, or derivative topics and so on, just to hit on what people want to listen to. And you will for sure see growth, for sure, because the content at the very base is what people want to listen to. Mm-hmm. That's for the content part. Do you have any questions on this?
No, that's very helpful. Very helpful.
Fantastic.
I watched a video. A guy talked about social, your Reddit thing reminded me. It was called targeted social media engagement. And he was talking about in trying to get interviews. So make sure you follow the people you want to interview, and then just engage with them, not promoting yourself, but just spend 30 minutes a day targeting your communities.
100%. So that's actually the next point. Guests.
Okay.
You have different factors of growth. I have released like a super long YouTube video on this, like exactly what do people see impacting the growth of their podcast the most. And so hitting on the right content is usually very good. Having great guests, like guests with a large audience who reshare, because not all the guests reshare, you need to make it worth their while to reshare. Back to having a properly produced podcast, having a high level of quality, having nice, good-looking social media assets that they can share easily. But like having big time guests is the highest leverage that you can go for a podcast growth. If you can find the intersection between, okay, based on my research on Answer the Public, I know that I need to talk about what masculinity means. Okay, I'm going to find a renowned philosophical professional or a renowned university teacher that talks about masculinity to come on the show and talk to answer the very question what masculinity means, like a 30 minutes conversation around this. Not only are you hitting on the right topic and the right keyword, but on top of that, and if you make a great interview with your guest, you're going to be able to tap into that person's audience. They're going to reshare it. People know the name. This gives instant credibility to your podcast. Not all the guest audience will just stick for next episodes, but some of them will, and they will go back to previous episodes. That's more downloads on your other episodes, and this compounds. Mm-hmm. So finding great guests is absolutely key as well. So the way we would do this with our clients, but you can do it yourself, right? Is we're like, okay, we are in for like 24 episodes together, 6 months of content. Make us a wish list, like 200 people in your industry who are either high-level decision makers or influencers or like extreme experts like SMEs. It can be very narrow even, because then it will make for very specific episodes that can answer very specific questions. And yes, it might get less views, but then anybody finding out about you thanks to this specific episode is then super qualified. That's for B2B and sales. But for you, the same applies, right? Like wish list of 200 people, because obviously not all of them will accept, and then make it worth their while. Meaning like, hey, look, I'm having a podcast. This is my mission, right? And then it needs to be about them. Like, I've noticed that you do XYZ and that you're renowned in the industry for ABC. I think my audience of that many thousand people would very much enjoy getting your take on this. Would you accept to come on the show? And here is what's in it for you. You tap into my audience. We will do social media assets. We will communicate heavily. We will post it on the website of the church and throwing things here. But like, make it worth their while so that you have a higher likelihood of them coming. Make them as appear as experts, right? The interview needs to be about them. You can give your take as well, of course, but like make the episode really about them so they want to reshare it, because then it's like, hey, it's an ego stroke. It's like, hey guys, look, I've been on this podcast, I've talked about this, and like for 45 minutes I spent an amazing time with Joseph and we answered the question ABC. And like this, you grow your podcast based on the content, but also based on the guest. And it's not a 1 + 1 = 2. It's like it's a compounding game. That's how I would recommend going by guests.
Yeah, that's I've kind of done that. I have that list of my top 100, and some of them are pretty, way out. I mean, they're wishful thinking for now, but
have to.
The idea is to build up to them, like, and sounds creepy a little bit, but like you find the guy you want, and then you find all his connections, and you get his connections that are easier to come, and now you're in his bubble.
So here is the secret about this, Joseph. When we started Podcast Gurus, so it's a podcast that aims at publishing content around podcasts, obviously. And our first 2 guests were people we already knew. One of them was a client. We knew a large network. And at the end of the episode, we had a blast. And we're like, hey, Mike, do you know 3 people? It's not like, do you know anybody? It's like, can you recommend 3 people that we could reach out to be on the podcast who would be great guests? And usually most of the people will be like, oh, let me think. Okay, I am thinking about so and so and so. And then it's like, cool. would you be opposed to making a 3-way introduction, right? Because it always works better when somebody introduces you than if you reach out saying, hey, so and so told me about you. So like, would you mind putting us in touch, like just in an email thread? And then, like if they answer, that's gold. If not, that's totally all right. No hard feelings whatsoever. But like this, and again, they need to have a great time with you, right? It needs to be a great podcast, which is why we always come back to content in the first place. But then you ask your guests, can you make that introduction? No hard feelings and no problem. If not, 80% of the people will say yes. And like we sign countless amount of clients thanks to this because it's a referral, it's a warm introduction. And it's like, this works so well. So here, the idea is not for you to convert your guests into clients, but really to release content around masculinity and like, build back the podcast where you want it to be. But that's a very, very good like growth leverage.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think I had watched that. I just interviewed a guy last week and I meant to do that and forgot. And it's like, as soon as he hung up, I was like, oh, shoot. So I'm going to make sure I do that in the future.
Yeah. So it's not as powerful, but you can always do it via email afterwards, right? Mm-hmm. Or pick up the phone if you have their phone number. But then so the way I love to do this, right, is you finish the interview and you're like, so how was this? Or like, hey, you liked it? No, how was this? So you get their genuine feedback. And then I always ask, what could I do better, right? Because there is obviously something to be done better. You get their feedback. And it's like, well, it's all right. That's cool. Okay. Before we hang up, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the show. The audience will love it, I'm sure. Like, who do you know? Do you know 3 people who would be interested in coming as a guest and who fits, the typical people we get on the podcast? Works very, very, very well. And you get lots of warm introductions. So that increases the likelihood that they come on the show. And then once you've done, because you have that 100 people wish list, 10 of them, you will talk to 10 of them. But then if each introduces you to 1 to 2 people, like you have content for life and you have guests for life. So it's like, it's really a compounding tool that is so powerful, so powerful.
Yep. Well, good.
Any questions on the guest side, Joseph?
No, I'm pretty good. And I'm actually pretty well connected within our niche as far as, and so what I'm wanting to do is kind of expand out of my own circles with it. So like the people within my niche, I know most of them and can just call them and they come. It's just a matter of, I want to expand to people that have bigger circles. I want to get out of my circle, bigger circles.
And that's, for that podcast, it's just so strong. Like to build a network is just, if done right, this is so powerful. So let me ask you this. Do you have in mind an episode that outperforms the others? What is it, not in absolute, but just to have an idea of like what that typically represents, right? If an episode gets on average, when you have one outperforming, how much is that typically?
Yeah, so we have one episode in particular that it still gets views and stuff. It is a discussion with a guy who used to be what's called the Eastern Orthodox. He used to be an Eastern Orthodox priest and became a Reformed Christian like I am. Okay. And so we just talked about him leaving the Eastern Orthodoxy, and that gets quite a lot of views and comments. Sometimes they're heated. I don't even look at the comments because you get people from both sides and they're debating and stuff. So I have found that debates work pretty well. So I have had 3 or 4 debates, and that was kind of a debate, but that it sparked debate, if that we'll put it that way. Yeah. Another one that kind of got really big was I had the guy used to be won America's Strongest Man award. So
nice,
like a strong man, and he came and
such a niche for that. That's so perfect. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So his interestingly enough, on YouTube, he just did the average, but on downloads, he's like at 6,000 or 7,000 now. Okay. So
what's the average on typical podcast episodes?
So on YouTube, the average, a couple hundred. Yeah. But when it came to the audio version, he blew out everything else. So I don't know why I don't know what the difference in that was, but
what was it, like 6 folds, 10 folds, 100 folds? What usually get like?
Yeah. So if I usually get 1,000 downloads, on an episode, between 500 to 1,000 on the audio. Yeah, he's at 7,000.
Okay,
7,208. Yeah.
So here, just because this is what happened, right? We're not talking about hypothetical here. Between nailing the right content and having the right guest, and you're so not only are you in a niche where you can get people with very large audiences, typically, so strongest man in the US, is that the person that you got? That's right. That's the title.
Yeah, the title of the episode. Sorry, let me find the title. I just lost it again. What do I do with it?
No worries.
Is America's Strongest Man. That's just the name of it.
That's so appealing, and you can do this with so many industries. So like between the content and the guest, if you do that right, you know that 7,000 is what you can get, and it can potentially go even higher with the right keywords and so on. But like if you average 500 to 1,000, right, and then as staying conservative, 500 downloads, you get episodes that get regularly between 5,000 and 6,000 downloads. You can 10x your downloads just by hitting the right content and inviting the right guest and being deliberate about it, right? That's what this could mean. And again, it compounds, because if all the episodes are with people who I would suspect that this person reshared something with the like audio version of the episode and not the video version, which is why it blew up.
Yeah.
That's how you tap into their audience. Like, I'm sure that plays. This is what you can get. Basing yourselves on what you currently get, right? Not even making assumptions of like you can get 50,000 downloads per episode. So 10xing your reach is totally within the realm of feasible, just with the right content and guest.
Exactly. Yep.
So the other thing that you mentioned, discoverability, so important. So discoverability is always going to be about, okay, you have the Patriarchy podcast, which is already in itself quite speaking about what this is about. What I would do as well is, so you keep the podcast artwork like this, but I would refine the title a bit, like the Patriarchy podcast, interviews and debates about masculinity, well-being of men, like, the main keywords that you find out from your research.
Okay.
Make sure that those are included in the podcast title as well. Because what we need not to forget is that Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where the biggest traffic is, are initially music apps, right? And the way people find music is with, so I'm going to get a bit technical here, but with exact matching, meaning they go in their app and they search Beyonce, Who Runs the World. Sorry, I had to make the joke. And here you're going to be like finding Beyonce, Who Runs the World, whatever. So you need to type in the exact name of the singer or the exact name of the song. Whilst they are improving on those aspects, the way you find content on podcast platforms is still like this. So people will type in something and they will provide them the exact match of the podcast titles or the what's in the show notes eventually, but mainly what's in the episode title. What I'm getting with all this, if people do not type directly Patriarchy or Patriarchy podcast or the Patriarchy podcast, right now they struggle to find you. For people who don't know you, right? And you want to reverse that. You want to make sure that in your title, in your podcast SEO, when people search for masculinity interviews or tips on masculinity or how to be more masculine, is that how we say in English? I'm not sure.
Masculine, yes, sir.
Masculine. They find your podcast. So I would make sure to have those keywords. Again, don't take my word for it right now. Just check on Google Trends, Google Keywords Planner, Answer the Public. What are the most used small searches, and include them in the title. Interview about masculinity, etc., etc. So people can find your podcast even if they don't know you.
That makes sense. So you're not saying I change it on my website or in my logo or anything. You're just saying on the app, the podcast apps, basically.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doubling down on this. Yes, you're right.
Yep.
The reason is, so the podcast artwork, you want it to be visually attractive, right? You want it to be simple, straight to the point. Let me check quickly the Patriarchy podcast. I love the logo. So let me share my screen here. The artwork do not change anything because it needs to be visually attractive. What I would potentially do, and this is advice that we implement for most of our clients, you don't have to, but that's what tends to work really well. Human faces, like work very well. So like make people see you. You're the host.
That's not even supposed to be the artwork. I'm having a hard time getting them to change that.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, that's my old logo and stuff. I have a new one.
Okay.
But yeah, I've updated it on the podcast stuff, but they don't. I got to figure out why.
Which platform are you using to upload the podcast?
It's called Dropwave.
Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so this is the new one, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so I mean, I understand. I know you're part of not the founding team of this, but like you were here at the Genesis, and like it's people you know. If they have the same capacity as any other podcast hosting platform, that's fine. But that's one of the points where those more ad hoc tools tend to fall a bit behind.
Yeah.
So what's probably happening is that it's properly connected to Spotify. So like it updated the RSS feed, which changed on Spotify, but not on Apple Podcasts. So you need to go on Apple Podcasts and change it. You wouldn't have to go through this trouble if you had like the more classical ones, Buzzsprout, Captivate, Red Circle kind of things. Let me check on Amazon Music.
What do you recommend for hosting your podcast then?
That's a great question. So we use Captivate because that's the best tool for enterprise level podcast management. Buzzsprout is very user friendly and does the work. Libsyn is good as well. Those three are the main three ones that we see usually. Good reporting capabilities, pricing models a bit different depending on what you go for, but those are all solid ones. If you want to stay with, what is it, Deepwave?
Dropwave.
Dropwave. If you want to stay with them, that's all right. Just make sure that you change the artwork directly on Apple Podcasts. But so where I was getting at is you want to have your face on it. People connect with faces at the end of the day. Okay. And yeah, I think you got this, but the patriarchy here is a bit hard to read, right? It's a bit not transparent, but it's not as clear as here. Here it's very clear. And I like the logo as well here. So actually I would definitely stick to this one. But so logo, I would keep it as is. It needs to be visually attractive. What I'm talking about is indeed the title here. Okay, so this section. So you can keep the patriarchy podcast, but then colon and here the keywords that are necessary. Okay, and make sure to include them in the show description as well, and in the titles and in the show notes. Make sure that people end up clicking. That's what I would. That's what I would go for. But yeah, website stays the same. YouTube stays the same. It's just for discoverability on the podcast platforms.
Okay.
That is discoverability. Any specific questions on those, Joseph?
No, that sounds good. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Fantastic. Okay. Next thing we're talking about is YouTube. You pinpointed thumbnails, but there is a bit more to it. So I want us to take the time to go through all this here. So for context, right? And this is a stat that I didn't have last time we spoke, but YouTube in Jan 2025, so 2 months ago, claimed 1 billion podcast listeners, 400 million played on TV sets. Those numbers seem a bit inflated, but for context, Spotify in November 2024 claimed about 120 million podcast listeners, right? So even if YouTube is doubling the numbers, or even 3xing, or even 4xing, it's still bigger than the biggest podcast platform. So we cannot overlook YouTube, and whatever results you're getting right now on a podcast platform, if you're doing things right, you could get more on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's for context, which, given the numbers that you just told me about, we are far from here. A bit more views already, but we are still far from the 1,000, which is what you typically get in podcast downloads.
Yeah.
So, few things here. First of all, YouTube looks great. You have a call to action here. That's fantastic. You mentioned the thumbnails. So what's so interesting about the thumbnails is that we all tend to want to have like super fancy thumbnails, very graphic, very visual. Now, let me show you the highest performing podcasts on YouTube, the highest growth, the one that they are split testing like hundreds of thumbnails for each and every episode. It is called Diary of a CEO. I don't know if you know it. Diary of a CEO from Stephen Bartlett. those are the thumbnails.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to go towards.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Because we implement this for clients and they complain that it's not beautiful enough. We're like, that's right. That's true.
Let me give me one second. I'm gonna pop open the most recent. I haven't uploaded this episode yet.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Nice. Joseph Spurgeon, Mark Mayfield, the Patriarchy Podcast, You're Being Controlled. Okay. So it's better than what you have right now. But I wouldn't say we are quite there yet. Why?
Okay.
So first of all, you have to bear in mind that I don't know the exact number, actually, we can check, but a number of users using mobile for YouTube. So global traffic, December 2024 came from mobile. 29.71% of the global traffic to YouTube coming from desktop devices. Meaning 70%, give or take, right? It might be plus or minus 10%, are using their mobile phone. Conclusion, the majority of people consuming YouTube videos are on mobile phone, which means that thumbnails are actually tiny, right? If you take an iPhone screen or like any mobile device screen size, and then you say, okay, YouTube typically fits 2-3 thumbnails within those, this is tiny. If you have too many information on your thumbnails, if it's too hard to read, it won't attract people. It won't attract as many people that you want. The role of the thumbnail is to make people stop. They will be like, I might be interested. Then they will check the title, and then they will click on play. But if the thumbnail doesn't hold that attention because there is too many information and it's not clear what's in the video, they won't go for it. So your thumbnail is like, it looks graphically, it looks nice, but I'm not sure it will get a high conversion rate. So how to do that with a podcast video? First of all, if you note what Stephen Bartlett here is doing, so the Diary of a CEO is doing, he has faces, big, right? With ideally emotional faces, like facial expressions, right? Whether that is anger or surprise or doubt or like timidity or like, I messed up. Like emotional expressions work very, very, very well on YouTube because it makes people connect with people, basically. Back to the having your face on the podcast artwork as well. Yep. The other thing that he does, so here we see that he did a little test with the rotted brain and the healthy brain. But the main thing that he does is he has 4-5 words, right? Sometimes 6 max, with very negative biases. We always are more triggered by negative sentences than positive. The one word all liars use. These tons of stress in second. These tiny mistakes are secretly making people dislike you. The truth about creating an exercise. I fucked up bad. Pardon my cursing. How to turn $0 to $10,000 a month. This one trait makes you 10 times more attractive, right? So most of the time it's negative biases. If not negative, it's like it strongly appeals to our instincts, to our emotions, to like what we deeply want. We don't want to fuck up. We want health. We want success. We want attractiveness. We want money. Typically, and you have a theme that could very well fit into this, but like a few words to clearly highlight what's in the episode and what people will get out of listening to this and watching this is key. And then you give a bit more information in the title, right? So all the time, that man, the man that makes millionaires turns $0 to by step-by-step formula. So you give a bit more information. So you validate and develop on the thumbnail. That's the rule of the game with thumbnails. Bright faces as well, again, to make people stop. This is not the case on your thumbnails right now. Stephen Bartlett has the biggest people on the show, right? Literally, he has the biggest celebrities on the show. Yep. Never does he put the name of the people on the thumbnails because that's too much and people won't read the name. Okay. Maybe for Mr. Beast, who is just absolutely huge, he's putting it, but in very little because that's not what's going to make the difference, as we can see here. You have your name and you have the name of the guest. That's too much information. So I would just put the 2 faces indeed. Okay. 4-5 words maximum, explaining what's in the episode, and validate this with the title. And then in the introduction, you need to validate the thumbnail in the first 10 seconds. That's how you're going to retain people once they click. That's the rule for YouTube. But if you do that right, you can get lots and lots of views here.
So that makes a lot of sense. This is actually what I'm wanting to go to. I'm having to train the man that I'm doing this on some of this.
So if you do that right, so proper thumbnails, proper titles, proper first 10 seconds of the video, you like expand your reach like crazy. Like you, given the views that you're currently getting, I wouldn't be surprised that you get a ×5 or ×10 viewership on YouTube. Like really, this works all the time. This works all the time.
Yeah, I've been wanting to go towards, see, we have this bold black color. If you go back to our logo and this gold at the top, if you go scroll up to the,
sorry.
So we have bold black, white, and gray. I mean, bold, white, and gold.
Yeah.
Black. And I want my thumbnails to kind of have that same
identity.
Yes. But taking what you just said, I think we can do that. Because the thing you just showed me was very much a lot of black. The bright white of the faces are a lot of light colors. And then he uses red, but I wonder if we could use gold in the text. I don't know.
So we've tested this. He says that he has tested this as well.
Yep.
Red is what makes more people click. Now, we have these considerations on a daily basis as well with our clients who want to stick to their brand, right? Which is fair.
Yep. Yep.
But the disclaimer always is like, sure, you can do it. We can do it if we do it for you. But it's always going to be, brand is always going to be at the expense of impressions and views and performance on YouTube, if it's not exactly the same color coding that makes people click. Now, if you're super strong on brand and you'd rather get, say, 50% less views, but to stick to your brand, then as long as expectations are set and that this is what you want to do, fine. I would split test in your case, because if the objective is to help as many people with masculinity and get the highest reach possible so that you can monetize your books for children or sponsorship deals whatsoever, at the end of the day, you also need views. And everything compounds, right? If you get twice the views, it means twice the people that come back after for more episode. It means twice the amount of people talking about your podcast and your content to friends. It means, and like these compounds. So you can, it might just be at the expense of performance. So it's always a balance to strike.
Yep.
That would be the disclaimer.
I got a question for you more about how to
go for it.
Is there a software that might make this easy to do what he did? Like
Canva.
Canva?
Okay. It's like Canva, you're right. Canva is the easiest. That's how we do all of them. You can collaborate with your team. It's like so easy.
Okay.
Yeah. And so try to get high resolution pictures of your guests. The best is to have like kind of picture from the recording itself, but that requires good camera. This is what Stephen Bartlett does, right? This is how he can capture the right expressions for this. And if not, like high resolution pictures, make the face bright in your editing software, right? So Canva, it's my team doing it. Actually, I don't even know if we can do it in Canva. I suppose so. If not, any like proper picture editing software will do.
Sure.
But to make the picture more bright, that's indeed important. Any other questions on YouTube and thumbnails, Joseph? We still have collecting email and overall marketing to go over.
No, we're good. Let's move on.
Fantastic. Collecting email. So here it's more around what we love to do is to say an email list, whatever the objective of the podcast, an email list is always going to be a golden asset. Why? Because depending on how you collect those emails, obviously, but this means you have a loyal audience to whom you can land in the email inbox of, meaning you can update them about new episodes going live. If you have special offers, you can communicate them to them. If you have sponsors, you can say, hey, by the way, I have a list of 5,000 emails that I also often communicate with, so I can name your brand in those emails or some of those emails. Like, this is just such a powerful tool. This ensures a minimum number of downloads, right? Because if you have a 45% open rate and a 10% click-through rate, this means that people will go and listen to the episode and so on and so forth. So email list, gold. How to get emails based on the podcast? What I would do if I were you is, based on the keyword research, I would understand what are 3 pain points of your ideal audience and 3 desired outcomes. Okay, I don't feel masculine enough, or I don't feel powerful enough, or I don't feel I'm in charge enough, or I don't feel I can support and provide for my family enough, right? Whatever the pain points. And then the desired outcome. I am strong enough. I am masculine enough. I can provide and support my family. I can, and so on. Craft an ebook around this, 20 pages, easy to digest, of high value, right? We really put some effort in having the best piece of content that will actually help people, and put it behind an email capture opt-in form. Meaning like, hey, if you're struggling with this particular point and you want to get this desired outcome, check out my free ebook that tackles exactly this. This will do multiple things. A, you will capture your ideal audience / client's email address. B, you will lead with value. Meaning it's not just, hey, give me your email address so you are subscribed to my newsletter and you will receive stuff whenever. It's like, no, I can help you more, leading with value and genuine value. And 3, they give you the permission to reach out to them, and they have manifested interest into your stuff. So you know it's your ideal client. So even if here the objective is just to be like, hey, I want to, help more men and more boys and like potentially sell my children's book, this is still like a super valuable email list for this specific niche, whatever you decide to do afterwards. How do you do this technically? So you've crafted a whole new website. You can have an opt-in form, an email automation, super easy guys on YouTube on how to set that up. If you're using WordPress, it's even easier. You have like plugins that you can just plug and play. And that way you can give away the ebook for free, have those email addresses, have like nurture sequences and like regular newsletters that you send to this audience. And this will be gold, whatever you decide doing. If you were a B2B business, this is why I say you get your ideal client's email address and they give you the permission to reach out to them. And they are qualified because who else would download a free ebook about, I don't know, how to scale up a SaaS business between $10 and $100 million a month, whatever. This can be gold, and I would insist it do this. We like to set that up from the get-go, even before we launch a podcast. In your case, you're already there, so it's a bit as you want. But like this is the foundation, because as soon as you start this, the earlier you have emails, the earlier you can get the compounding machine going. Because again, it's like people who will tune back in. You have their contact details, so you can ask questions sometimes like, hey, I'm thinking about doing an episode about this, or I'm about to interview the strongest USA man. Like, what questions would you like to ask? You engage them in the episodes that you do. And it's like, again, it's a virtuous circle that you can just get into. So yeah, collecting email would 100% do this. You put that behind.
Then you have their emails. The question is, how often do you email them?
That is another great question. So depends on the vibe. So if you release one episode a week, it's good to communicate once a week. What we do for our clients and for ourselves is we have a sequence, but the objective is a bit different here. It's not to get them necessarily to listen back to the episode. It's more to showcase proof, showcase authority, and get them to take action. For you, that's not really what you want to do. But here is what we do and what we put in place for clients. They opt in, they get the free ebook. The day after, they receive one of our best case studies. Meaning like, hey, how so-and-so went from this to this in that period of time. Second day, so like 48 hours after they opted in, best transformation. So like best case study, then best transformation. And third day after they opted in, an email about an industry insight. For us, it's like launching a podcast now equals buying Bitcoin in 2012, because we believe in the format that much. But like some industry insight about here is why masculinity is important in 2025, or the biggest lie you've ever been told about masculinity, something like this. So in 3 days, you build super strong authority, you showcase your expertise, and you actually provide industry insights to validate all this. And then, depending on what you want to do, but 2 emails a week is good. So one about new episodes being live, for instance, and one that is your unique take on a specific topic could be interesting. Make it very easy to unsubscribe, right? Because the worst thing you want to do is people just putting your email into the spam folder. So like always have the unsubscribe link at the top. If people are not interested, that doesn't mean you lose their contact details. It just means that they are not going to receive the newsletters when you reach out to them again. That's the only thing that I would do. That's what I would go for typically to get an engaged email list. One last point, marketing. So I think you mentioned it. You want to do snippets, you want to do social media and so on. I like that we tackle this last, because for me, marketing content that isn't growing on itself is useless. because as soon as you stop the marketing efforts, your content doesn't get traction anymore, which is why we start by the content itself. Then who comes on the show? Then how easy is it to find your content organically, discoverability. Same for thumbnails and YouTube, right? How to get the ecosystem around the podcast to capture email addresses and send people back in. And then we can talk about marketing. So here is what I would do if I were you. And it depends also on capacity, resources, and so on. The minimum I would do is for each and every episode, 3 snippets of less than 60 seconds that you publish on the 6 main social media platforms, namely LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter/X, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. That's 18 pieces of content per week that you can publish if you do a weekly episode. How to select the right content. So it needs to be, obviously, social media is not the same as podcast, right? So you want to select insightful 60 seconds, ideally a bit controversial or a bit punchy, something that will make people react, emotionally engaged, but in 60 seconds, right? You need to put the right hook at the beginning. Like on short form content, the first 3 seconds are critical. If you don't have that, people will just scroll past. So you want to, even if that means, okay, between second 18 and second 21, we have 3 seconds here is like, here is why masculinity is not dead. That's the hook. And then you roll out your content. But it's important in the editing to put that snippet at the beginning so that you get engagement. That's the minimum I would do. If you can go a bit over, I would also do an SEO optimized article for your website, Joseph. So post all episodes on your website. Each and every episode has their page with YouTube player at the top, embedded, Spotify player embedded after the YouTube, so people can watch and or listen to your podcast on your website. And then an SEO optimized article. So you can also tap into the reading audience. And you get your website to rank higher for searches linked to this. Back to the content research. You are hitting on keywords that are looked for. So you can also tap into the reading audience because this is based on what people are looking for on the internet. So you will get a compounding audience also reading your stuff, not just consuming it in watching or listening. And you tap into another bucket of audience here, of whom you capture the email address, you make them enter into your ecosystem, and so on and so forth. If you do that, you can get a pretty good growth on your podcast.
So a lot. That's why
It is.
have a team. That's why I'm going to have a team to help me.
Exactly. That's the important part. But if you do that properly, you can, just hitting on the right content means based on the current numbers, right? You can 10x the audience. It's not going to happen overnight, but like if you make sure that all the episodes are like the ones with the US strongest man, you can that you can get those numbers. So like, it's like just going through it. Discoverability means more people will find out about your stuff organically. YouTube, literally, if you can get YouTube at least at the same level as all the podcast platforms, right? I'm not even talking about more, but just at the same level. It means you double your audience at maximum capacity. So you're 20xing your audience that you have right now. And then if you put the right marketing machine behind it, then who knows? Sky is the limit. And then monetization is much easier, obviously, because you have the emails, you have the reach, you have the engagement, and you can send people towards where you want them to be.
Would it make sense for me? Should I go back and redo the thumbnails on my previous episodes?
That's a cool question. Given all the work that awaits you right now, I wouldn't focus on that just yet. So by nature, the YouTube algorithm, so yes, videos posted 1 year ago can still get views, can still get discovered and so on. But typically you have a 48 to 72 hours window when you release a new episode, a new video, where YouTube is the most likely to send you traffic. After that, it's just going to be the normal organic search and discoverability features. If somebody consumes your videos already, they're going to get recommended more. If they are consuming content that is close to yours, they are going to recommend this, but it's going to push less the content because it's not just new. At the end of the day, YouTube, like every platform, wants more users to stay longer, and new and fresh content helps that. So I wouldn't bother too much right now redoing previous thumbnails. Once you've nailed down all the points that we've hit on here, so content, guest, discoverability, thumbnails, collecting emails, and properly marketing. So like once you've nailed those 6 points and like you're perfect in all of them, this can be a nice piece to add in it.
Okay. That's good. What's the best time to post these shorts so I did 6 shorts from the last episode. Mm-hmm. Two of them got like 500 or 600 views.
Nice. On which platform?
on YouTube. 2 of them got 100, and then like one of them got like 2 or 3 views. So it's like I haven't figured out like exactly why one gets more than the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if timing had to do with that. I posted them at different times.
I'm assuming you're using a tool like Opus Clip or something like this to do the videos.
Yep.
Cool. So at the end of the day, what's gonna get you views on short form content is the hook, and the hook, right?
Okay.
First, like the attention span of people, especially on short form platforms, is tiny small. So you need to hook within the first 3 seconds. If within the first 3 seconds you do not give me a good reason to stay, I'm gonna scroll. So my interpretation of this is simply the hook on this video, and on this video. So the one that got 432, 519, and 628 views is much stronger, and like 100 times stronger than the ones that got 6 views. That's the first thing. But the content needs to be engaging as well, right? If people stay longer, YouTube is going to push it more to other people. Now, there are also some visual aspects that we might want to look into. Remember, people are on their smartphone, right? So it's a small screen. Having a split screen like this is typically not what you want to get on a short form platform. We need one camera at a time that takes the whole screen, right? Here you have like kind of dead space that is not used for anything. And so if people are hooked, but then they need to stay focused on a fraction of their screen, literally less than a third here, this is too small. So one camera at a time, even if that means you make a switch between the 2 speakers. Titles, you have that's good. Let's have a look at one quickly. I would potentially add some
quick rundown of what
the historic doctrine or truth and teaching of Christian interposition is to put oneself in.
So multiple things here. So first of all, the audio of your guest is not fantastic, Joseph. Nothing you can do. He's recording from his car, so obviously that's a bit hard. One thing that you can do to enhance this is go on a tool like Adobe Audio Enhancer. It can be free. There is a free version, but it's basically you upload an audio file and it will enhance it, and you can toggle more or less based on AI. It's so freaking powerful. Pardon my French. Just listen to this.
I'm in a conference room with the window open, and it's pretty echoey in here too. Not the best place to record audio. Yet with enhanced speech, all of the background noise and echo is gone.
It is crazy powerful. So in a situation where you have the guest in a car, which is exactly your situation here, this will help like crazy. I would try, but that's not something that Opus Clip will do very easily. That's where having a team helps. But having audio, visual effects, editing helps a lot to retain attention and to get more views. But again, I would focus on the hook, and the hook. Great content, good subtitles, and then you can refine with some visual and audio editing on top of that. But that's where the main difference comes from. And here you're directing people towards the main episode, which is absolutely great. You have a great title, so all this is pretty solid.
The only thing I want to say is I love that you said "pardon my French."
I can say this. I'm French.
You are French. That's why I loved it. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time and walking me through all that. This is going to be very helpful. I have a meeting on Wednesday to walk through my team. I will add this to it and beginning to get all this just implemented. Probably the hardest part will be getting the email this thing going. I got to write a book, but I can do that. I can do that. I've got a lot of content already that I can repurpose into a book. Would you suggest? Is it wrong? I mean, I can use AI to help with that. Is that a bad thing to do? Do people immediately catch on to that?
So at the end of the day, again, what I like is like not the how, but the why, and what's the end objective. The end objective is to provide a valuable piece of content that will help people. That's the number one objective. Now, how you get there is up to you. What we've noticed AI is very good at is structuring your thoughts and providing an ecosystem and a framework on how to do something. You can even get it to write a draft, but even this we don't like a lot because then you're very much biased, right? You're reviewing and you're editing, but you're not writing with your own voice.
Yeah.
What I love to do, so what I did for 3 ways to generate leads with your podcast, an ebook that gets us tremendous amount of leads, is having ChatGPT lay down the structures like, hey, I want to, so you are a professional copywriter specialized in creating lead magnets in the form of ebook. Help me create an ebook for my podcast marketing agency that aims at helping B2B businesses create podcasts to generate leads and build a brand. Lay down a structure of, because I knew I had 3 ways to generate leads with the podcast, lay down a structure for an ebook that walk through step by step how to launch, grow, and market a podcast that can generate leads through those 3 ways. So there is namely interviewing your ideal clients, setting up a lead funnel, which is what we've covered here with email capture, and creating a podcast for backlinks, sending people organically to your website. That's a bit of a niche way. It lays down the structure with all these chapters, with an excerpt of what each chapter needs to talk about, and then you write it yourself. That's how far I would go with AI. Because if you get it to write it for you, you're going to be biased when you're going to review. Like, no matter whether you want it or not.
Yep.
Now, if you want to write it 100% with AI, then that's your call. But remember that the value of the ebook, the value of the lead magnet will determine how much people open your emails afterwards and how much they click on your links afterwards. So in your case, if you want to get sponsors, if you want to sell your children's book, if you want to like create that base of emails that genuinely engages with you, know that whatever you send them, it's going to be valuable, so they are going to open it. It all starts with the ebook. So with our clients, we like to put a lot of time and efforts into crafting the perfect lead magnet, because then everything else will be driven from this, on top of the content, obviously. Does that answer your question, Joseph?
No, yeah, that answers my question. Yep.
Cool.
So,
and I know that's the more time-consuming way, but that's also the more valuable.
No, it's fine. I write all the time. I don't actually I will use AI as a spell check, basically. And
this is great.
And I have created like 10 different chat bots there that help with different research or different things.
Nice.
But I write. I don't feel right if I don't write it.
So you hit on something very interesting here. So I think, let me check something. I don't remember which one it is exactly, but so I think the average English level in United States, I don't remember if it's 4th or 5th grade, 7th to 8th grade level. So what English level is the average American? And this is not an attack whatsoever, right? It's just to bear in mind an important point about the US demographics is that the average American has an English level of 7th to 8th grade level. If you use language that is above that, you're basically not catering to the need of half the population or more. So what we love to have ChatGPT do, or an AI tool to do, is once you're done writing your content, feed it to ChatGPT and say, can you rewrite this with a 7th to 8th level of English? Because in French, there is an expression which says, who can the most can the least, but certainly not the other way around. So if it can help beginners and people to easily understand your stuff, it will not mean that you're not tapping into the more elite Americans. It just means that it will be even easier and faster for them to understand. You will cater to them, but you will also cater to all the other people who are not used to reading or even understanding fancy words. So that's something I would potentially leverage ChatGPT for indeed.
That makes sense. All right, man. Well, I have been blessed by your time and you've been helpful to me. So I really appreciate it.
It is a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it, bud.
Joseph, I appreciate you. Have a great week and speak to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. God bless.